What's up, my artistic enchiladas? So today's gonna be a bit of a special video because if you read the title and the thumbnail, I will be making a tutorial on how I make a puppet. I don't know why I stopped right there, but this is basically just how I make a puppet. So if you guys read the title, I'm making Jax from the amazing digital circus. Now I also want to say something real quick. I am going to be giving away this Jax on Macari, so if you haven't seen my Macari, so you might want to tune in. So once he goes up and he's bought, he's gone forever. But anyways, I'm letting you guys know that because I'm here to show you guys how I basically make the bodies of the pipe cleaner figures, because they are so simple. Because I feel like because Jax has a simple like skeleton structure, or like just a very simple design in general, he will be you guys will understand. Like it'll be simple to go through and just like understand what my process is when I make these guys. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy this video, and yeah. So obviously first we need pipe cleaners, and as you can see here we are getting two, basically making them into an X shape, but we're tying up one side to make it a spine, and then we're leaving the bottom for the legs. Now we got another one here for the arms, which is pretty much self-explanatory, but you have to twist it around in order to make sure it stays in place. So basically the next few steps is basically just shaping him. Basically make sure his frontal shape is excessive and it's accurate enough to the point where you can start wrapping it in pipe cleaners. So as you can see here with the torso, we're wrapping one pipe cleaner around his leg, and then we're going to go up around his arm, which eventually will do the other side, which will lead to his torso shape. And basically once you have the shape done, all you have to do is just keep wrapping pipe cleaners around it until you get the shape you need. As you can see here, that's what I did, and here we are. Now we're moving on to the fingers, which is kind of easy but kind of difficult at the same time. Basically always start with the thumb first, because that way you can move on from there, and also so you can mark the index finger off of the thumb, so that way it's easier to make the fingers going forward. And I'm sorry if some of this is hard to see. My fingers are getting in the way a lot. I'm sorry if this makes some people uncomfortable, and I'm sorry if it's hard for some people to see. But like I said already, I don't really do tutorials, so this is kind of a new thing for me. Like I did do one before, but it was easier because I had a desk. This is sorry for the awkward angles in this video. At least in the beginning. Like later on it'll get better, I trust me, I promise. And if you did it correctly, you have both of the hands now. And now we're moving on to the feet. The feet is basically the same thing, but very simpler. Again, just if you have an extra thing of pipe cleaner underneath it, just keep wrapping it around and then you'll have a completed foot. Now let's move on to his neck, because believe it or not, it's actually important that you have a stable neck, so that way the figure's head can stand up. I had a faulty problem doing this in the past, but luckily I eventually knew that the neck is important and I must keep going in order for it to actually stand up right. And that's what we're doing right now. And basically just do this exact same thing with the head until you get the shape you need, as you can see here. So as you can see right now though, we're in a new day and we're starting on the ears now, where we're basically, if you guys wrapped it around like I did, there should be enough room to put a pipe cleaner underneath it and shape the ears, which again just results in a lot of twisting and turning, which is basically what we just did right now. And once that's done, you should have the whole figure done from the pipe cleaner stage. Now make sure you have these tools. Make sure you have scissors, the right color of material, and a hot glue gun with glue sticks. It's very important. And you're going to need a marker as well, but we'll get to that when we get to that. So this right here is a yellow foam sheet that we're going to cut to make his eyes and his mouth. I went with foam sheet just because I feel like it would be a lot more easier to color on with a marker, which is what we're going to be using for his pupils and his teeth. So you just simply need to glue it on to the black pipe cleaner body, and it will most likely look like that. So next step is very simple. All you have to do is just carefully color in his eyes, which is basically just big squares. And I remember the first time I saw Jax, I always thought he reminded me of Analog Horror because they always had those creepy looking eyes. And his eyes aren't creepy, but they just give off that vibe, you know? And as you can see, I messed up there, but make sure they're even. So obviously don't just like let it like look uneven, because then I'm pretty sure it'll bother you just as much as it bothered me. And I'm using a regular marker here, so that way it's easier to color in, so you're not wasting so much of your ink for your thin tip Sharpie. And for the teeth, it's basically we're just coming back to the thin tip Sharpie and coloring in his teeth. There's one in the middle and 3 on either side of it. So basically you are dealing with 7 lines on his mouth to represent his teeth shape. And once you have that done, you should have his mouth. And now it's time for a little bit of a tricky part. So get a material color of his skin or fur, whatever. Cut a line underneath so that way you can put his neck. And I want you to pin it so that way you can work with the face by cutting the eye holes open. So that way you can work your way around the material and cut open his eye sockets and his mouth. So that way he looks a little more three-dimensional instead of just sticking material on his face. This is a better route. That way it looks a little better than just, you know, just sticking on material, because it looks a lot better. Look, imagine sticking that on with just material, because it wouldn't look as good. And I know this might be a little tricky to some people, but hey, you want to put your best foot forward, then I recommend you make sure you try to put your best foot forward. And also make sure your puppets are clean. Like if there's any excess wonky shapes on it, mine especially have that problem, just make sure you shape it and you should be good to go. And as you just saw, we moved off his face and now we're going to glue it onto, so that way it, well, now it's on. And once the face is on, pretty simple, you turn his head around so that way you can glue the sides and like obviously put in some movement on the back of his head. And something I forgot to show is also put lines at the top of the ears so that way they can also go into the back of the head without leaving an ugly gap right there, or an ugly looking like seam. As you are seeing right now, I am gluing the back of the head to add more seams. And now for his neck, which is basically just a little rectangle. You just glue it and then shape it around his neck, and then it's pretty self-explanatory. But a technique I want to share with you guys is pinching. I want you guys to pinch the material while it's drying, or while you just put the glue on, so that way it's tight enough to make a shape of his neck. Probably the simplest part of the head is simply just putting a piece of material on the back of his head, and as you guys can see from the back of the head, I actually stuck more pipe cleaner right there because there was a big ugly gap right there. So hopefully with that it will make the back of the head look a lot more better than it actually is. So yeah. And also, like I just said, hide the seams by gluing it. It might, okay, the little heads up, it might burn you guys, but honestly, just be brave. It doesn't sting, at least if you use the brand I use, and then you'll have a very clean looking head. Now let's move on to those ears, everybody. So again, the ears are basically just the same thing as the neck. Just cut open a triangle, glue it, and then just put it around his ears until you shape it. But the only difference is that you have to actually cut around the pipe cleaner, so that way you have the right shape. Basically, you'll know better with this shape once we get to the hands. And with his ears completed, we're now moving on to his torso. Basically, just get the same color of his fur and make sure you wrap it around him originally, and try to feel where his shoulders are and cut it so that way you are ready to put the material around him, such as like his armhole sockets, so that way you can like I just said, put his arms through it, and like so it's easier to do it, because if you use 2 layers it would most likely be messy. So this is my route. I always go with That way it's not too like annoying to like try to make it look perfect. That's why I like wrapping it around the sides as well, so like I just said, because it's easier in my opinion at least. And I know it's kind of late in the video to be saying this, but I know some of you are probably wondering why I haven't done CatNap tutorial yet. Well, it's also because I haven't had the time to do it, and also I kind of don't have the material for it. With Jax here, he has such a simple design, I decided to do that instead because, well, he's not my favorite. I'd rather go with Kinger, but I haven't made him yet, and I just rather make him because, again, he's a very simple design, and it will be easier to make a tutorial off of him, which is what I did. Oh, and also, if you have an ugly gap like that, make sure you again use the pinching technique by gluing it and pinching it, and if there's some excess right there, easily cut it off with scissors. And as you can see, what we're about to do right now, do the same thing with the back, but also as you can see, there's another ugly gap around his neck. So again, glue it. You don't have to pinch it, you can just push it down until there's no seams. Some of this may look difficult, but trust me, it's actually really easy, and it's actually very satisfying seeing it all come together. And again, with the arm, it's basically the same thing as the neck, the ears, and the torso we just did. Basically, just glue it on and pinch it until you have the shape, and of course, cut off the excess. Now, you're about to see an ugly looking arm though, but I actually did this off camera, but I actually made it a lot more cleaner. And now we're moving on to his overalls, which is basically just a regular piece of material. Obviously, like I said, with the neck, arms, and torso and stuff, just cut out a rectangular shape and glue, and make sure you angle it right to where it reaches where it begins and where his feet are. And basically, like I just said already, pinch it and glue it, or glue it and pinch it, because that's usually how it works. And obviously this might feel a little weird to people, but you have to feel where his crotch is, get your scissors and cut all the way back to where his crotch is, so that way you have a proper way of knowing how to make the legs for the pants specifically. Now here is a little different because I literally just showed you guys already, but this is a little bit tricky because I accidentally made the things too short to wrap it around, but luckily this is a material that's kind of stretchy, so in a way it's easy to just simply wrap it around all the way and, you know, cut it and shape it to where it needs to be the way it is. And now moving on to, we're still on his overalls, but moving on to where his like stomach area is. Basically just get a lighter color of whatever material, make sure it's at least has the same texture in a way, for his overalls, and then just stick it on his belly, and then there you go. Make sure you glue it though, because if you don't glue it, then it's not going to stay on. Obviously, I don't know why I said that. It's an obvious thing. Just make sure you glue everything on here. Very important that we have glue stick on. Now for his overall straps, basically you just get another long rectangular shape, and then you glue it only one side though, because this will be important, and then you fold it in half, and then you pinch it again or flatten it. I like to use my palms and flatten it, but I didn't do it here because I was afraid I was going to shake the camera like heck and back. I also pulled it, but again I just did it that way. And then of course cut the shape of the overall and make sure it's the right shape, so that way it can go right. As you can see, I trimmed it a little bit more there, but we made it in the end, and there we go. Make two of those obviously, and as you can see in the back, we made them a little too long, so just trim it. Easier said than done, believe it or not. It's actually kind of tricky because I still kind of either made them too short or too long, so obviously make sure they are the right size, so that way they can reach all the way to the back of his legs, or no, the back of his overalls, so that way they at least look either both clean and seamless. Either or works. And now we're moving on to his buttons, and we're using the foam sheets again because I feel like this approach would be a lot more better, because if you use felt it would be kind of messy and it would probably kind of wear out after a while. So I feel like this would also result in a more realistic look either way, or more like smoother look and more like realistic. I don't know. I feel like I said realistic already, but yeah, you get the point. Well, if you guys haven't been noticing, by the way, I have been doing this multiple days. It's been kind of hard to film this, but like I said, this is why I didn't do tutorials in the past, but we're here now, so I'm just gonna keep going. So if you're wondering why the light keeps changing, this is multiple days, so let's get going. Alright, now we're on with probably one of the trickiest things I do with puppets, the hands. Kinda, I mean, it's basically just simply just putting glue onto the top of the palm and the fingers, so that way it's easier to get it on, and then just glue in the other side. But we'll get to that when we get to that. But yeah, I mean, we're already there. But like, make sure you guys also press it down. Make sure you press a lot of things down, so that way you have details that are showing through with the fingers. Especially with the hands, they are very important. It might result in something looking kind of ugly later, but at the time, this is how I do my technique, and this is how I make fingers. So as you can see what I'm doing, I'm pressing everything I can to make sure that the fingers show through. And obviously once you're done and satisfied with how it looks, cut around it and then make those lovely looking hands. It's kind of hard trying to make sure you get in between the fingers without it looking kind of ugly. Mine does look ugly, but in the end it actually does look pretty good, or decent. And we're also moving to the tip of the glove, where I don't know what it's called. The tip of the glove where it's like around your wrist. So just his wrist, where it's like another layer of yellow, basically doing the same technique as the straps. Do that, obviously cut off this the seams, the ugliness, whatnot, and put it around his wrist, so that way he has a more like decent looking glove. And make sure you cut it, because obviously if you leave it there, it's gonna look ugly, and I'm pretty sure it should be self-explanatory. Okay, and then once you got both of his hands done, we are now going to move on to his feet. And again, this is actually very simple, so you could basically complete all the hard parts. But basically do the exact same thing we did with the torso and the neck. Cut a straight line around the foot or the ankle, and then glue it, and then obviously trim down the excess fabric that doesn't need to be there. And keep going until it looks like that. And I use scissors to make the toes, because it actually is easier to make the toes like that. And now we're moving on to his heel, his heel, which again, it's basically just simply just wrapping material around his ankle or his whatever, and then there you go. And obviously again, just cut off the excess fabric, and then you should be good to go. And that is our completed Jax puppet. Anyways, that's it, everybody. That is how you make a Jax puppet from Digital Circus. I'm sorry, the Imagine Digital Circus. Sorry. But I will say he's not perfect, obviously. If you look at this hand right here, there's obviously some pipe cleaner showing a little bit through. And on the feet, it's obviously messed up because this whole area right here is uneven. I could probably fix that. That's kind of bothering me a little bit. And then the bottom of the feet, ew. But everything else should holding itself together pretty well. And like I said in the beginning, I am going to be giving this one away on Mercari. So if you have my Mercari, keep an eye out. I'm going to be giving him away soon. He'll probably be up when this video goes up, but he probably won't. I don't know. You'll just have to wait and see. I probably put him on Mercari, so that way you guys have a chance to probably get him. And I don't have a confirmed price because Mercari's weird, so I have to just wait for the thing to go up. And if you have the money on there, because they do the price for me, I can't make my own, so I can't confirm an actual price. So anyways, thank you guys so much for tuning in today. I love you all. Stay safe out there, and